I stared down at the world underneath me as the helicopter blades sliced quietly through the air, carrying us to my family's land in the Appalachian Mountains. Each of these men that I have come to love like brothers lost in their own thoughts. Lion, who was now seeing with his own eyes, instead of the eyes of immense power, sat close to the opposite door, his huge shadow set at his feet. With a steady hand he stroked the mane of the beast, keeping him calm. I wondered what went through his mind at this moment. I wondered what was it like for him to be a host for only a moment of such power. I remember Stormy telling me about the parable of the talents. Yah gave to each man what he was capable of holding. It was then that man's job to nurture it and grow what Yah entrusted him with. I didn't tell my father, but I believe that I will be tested tonight, and how and whether or not I pass the test will determine if I get my Stormy back. You see, I had failed my first test, which was why I lost her in the first place. I had fed into my emotions and allowed myself to be manipulated by another spirit. A spirit that I now knew was always close to me. A spirit that did not want to see me win. It wanted me to lose. But the problem was, this spirit sounded so much like me. So, learning to know the difference would be my ultimate test. I have also learned that there's another spirit that is also always close to me. This spirit wants me to live. This is the spirit that I must grow. It is important that this spirit remain my strong man. I rubbed my hand down my face. I wondered if I would be strong enough to win this race. Son, no matter what happens tonight, I want you to know that I am so proud of you. You are so much stronger than me. My father spoke from where he sat next to me on the seat. Yeah, Pops, I doubt that, I told him, and I meant it. My father had been strong enough to see that how he was living was wrong. He had been strong enough to come back to Yah. Had it not been for him, had he not sent Stormy my way, I would have never walked away from my life. No, son, it's a fact. Do you know how long it took me to learn what you learned in only 1 month? How long? 3 years. Come on, man. I shook my head. I ain't believe that. No, I'm serious. Big Ock, would you tell him? He asked the Ock on the seat that was across from us. The Big Ock nodded his head. It's true. Your dad had a hard time passing a few tests. I frowned. What do you mean? I asked him. Big Ock chuckled. You see, the Father knows what we need to fix and change about ourselves in order to please Him, even if we don't know it. He's a loving Father, caring, long-suffering. So He begins to show you what He needs you to change first, and He'll test you to see if you got it. And until you pass that test, learn to humble yourself enough to listen, you don't move to the next level. Your pop, he kept bumping his head for a while. On what? I asked my dad. I couldn't let go of their life. I mean, I let go of the obvious wicked part of it, but a little leaven leavens the loaf. And for some reason, I just couldn't see that at first. But you just dropped it off. your frat, your inheritance, your crown? I shook my head. It's because of what you did, sending me Stormy. I feel like as long as I got her by my side, and we got Yehoshua leading our way, we can make it through anything. Tears came to my father's eyes. He nodded his head. Remember that tonight, son. Once we cross over the river and go into the woods, the enemy is going to try and test you. I hate we have to go that way, but there is no other entranceway to where they're holding Stormy. You have to go into the woods. The last time I was there, I was full of the witches' brew, so it was hard for me to remember what it was like. But that's what they do for initiations into your mother's coven. They soup you up with their witch's brew, and then they make you walk through those woods. Back then I didn't understand fully what was happening, but my brothers and I have been in places like this many times before. All you have to do is remember that Yehoshua does lead your way. So test every spirit. Do you know how? I shook my head. With the word. No matter what a spirit is telling you, if it is not in the scriptures, then it is a lie. But I didn't finish reading my scriptures yet. He patted me on my back. I know, son. Just remember that prayer I taught you. Say it over and over again until it becomes breath to you. And don't worry too much, because we're going to be right there with you. And like I said, this ain't our first rodeo. I looked at the other men as my father spoke. I didn't see any fear in them. Each of them had developed a relationship with the Father that transcended fear. They trusted Abba Yah. I held out my hand for my father. He clasped his in mine. I nodded. I didn't tell him, but I was shown something different tonight. I was shown that this was a battle I would have to fight on my own. Tonight, I would have to find my own relationship with Yah. These men that sat next to me were my brothers for life. If I make it past this night, I will fight many more battles with them. I will probably die right next to them. But tonight, it was just me. And not one of these men in this helicopter can go on this journey with me. I was being carried by a giant of a man. His touch made me feel as if I was going to lose everything in my stomach. I still had very little control over my muscles, so my head hung limp over his arm. I squinted trying to take in what was happening around me, but it was useless. Not only was my glasses gone, who knew where, the shot they gave me made everything in my body feel weak, including my already weak eyes. I could only see Margaret, who walked right in front of us. She was dressed like some kind of dark queen. Her wedding dress was all black. The top of it fit her form closely, but the bottom bellowed out and a long train followed behind her. Her hair was piled high on her head, and she wore a crown that looked like it was made out of opal on her head. When they had lifted me out of the bed, I had gotten a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I too wore some kind of wedding dress, but mine was white. The woman Margaret had called Slave had came and took my hair down so that it hung like thick clouds down my back. She had even put makeup on me. My feet were still bare. Fear had tried to creep in on me, but every time it did, I just prayed. I didn't just pray for me either. I prayed for Solomon and his dad. I prayed for Hadaria and her family. I prayed for little Dynasty and Ima Naomi. I prayed for Nuriah and Lion and their children. I prayed for Saphaya. I prayed for the other ox. I even prayed for these people participating in this foolishness here tonight. You see, The truth was, I felt sorry for them because they didn't have eyes to see. They didn't know the benefits that came from seeking Yah. I felt sorry for them because they all believed a lie. And one day, they were going to find out that they had been fooled. But then it's going to be too late. I felt sorry for them because they were going to be caught in Yah's wrath, which is going to be something fierce to behold. We walked into what looked like an old church. All that I could see clearly were that there were a lot of people sitting in the pews. The big man carried me to the front and strapped me to some kind of board that stood straight up. It was in front of a massive red glass window. I squinted looking out at the crowd. Everybody wore masks. The women were dressed in pretty colorful gowns, and the men in suits, but they all wore a mask. All except Margaret. She stood in the front of them facing the crowd. Tonight is a special night, she began, holding up her hands. Tonight, we crown our king. The crowd erupted in applause. She held up her hand to the room, and it fell silent. Tonight, we feast on the blood of this innocent. The room erupted in applause again. She held up her hand, bringing silence. The spirit of the goddess lives within me, and tonight she will be reunited with her long-lost love. Everybody shot to their feet, applauding with gusto. Margaret motioned with her hand, and music began to play. Women barely dressed came forth from what looked like the floor, and they began to dance seductively around the crowd. This place was wicked. I closed my eyes, not wanting to see anymore. Please, Abiyah, deliver your servant. Daniel landed the stealth helicopter on the other side of the river. Across the river, the dark forest loomed. When we were kids coming here, my sister and I often stood right here looking across the river and into the woods, and then back up further into the mountains. But we never ever dreamed of crossing and going into those dark woods. Mouse handed each of us a little device for our ear. Testing, testing, he said. We all gave him the thumbs up that we heard. Big Ak went into his backpack and came out with a smaller bag. He pulled a string and a nice-sized plastic raft took shape. He put it in the water, and all of us, except for Mouse, who had set up his computer in the helicopter, got in. Lion and the Big Ak quickly paddled us across. As soon as we set foot on land, Daniel with his rifle disappeared into the woods. The rest of us entered, going the opposite direction. Alright, game's on. You got 4 warm bodies and about 30 cold ones, give or take a few, coming your way. And Ox, they coming fast. Mouse's voice could be heard in our earpiece. Lion took out his sword. My father looked at me. Remember, son, the war is won, one battle at a time. King's, Lion's pet, let out a loud roar. Then Lion let out a battle cry that shook the earth before we ran into the woods. The first round of attacks came from the sky. Powers began falling to the ground around us. Only none of us was fighting yet. I looked up. That's when I realized we were not alone. There were angels who fought with us. Shlomo, heads up, Ak, Mouse's voice said in my ear right before I was hit hard in the back by something or someone. My world went black. When I woke up, I was in my old room at the Theta Nu house. Surrounding me on all sides were women so beautiful that it hurt to look at them. They were touching me and singing in a voice so soft and sweet, I wanted to just let go and float away on it. A thought came to me then, seemingly random, a fluttering, really. I thought about Yehoshua being taken up to the mountain by Satan and then being tempted. And I frowned, looking around at these beautiful women touching me, moaning and purring next to me. This wasn't right. I jumped up out of the bed. The women, although not following me out of the bed, reached for me, beckoning me to rejoin them. Nude bodies glistening in the candlelight, their soft voice singing, pulling at my mind. I shook my head. I thought about a scripture that Elder had read to me earlier in the week about strange women. It was found in the book of Proverbs, chapter 23, verse 27. For a whore is a deep pit, and a strange woman is a narrow well. She too lies in wait as for a prey, and increases the treacheries among men. I blinked when I looked at them again. They were hideous. The sweet singing turned into the hissing of snakes. Yah rebuke you, HaShaitan, in the name of Yehoshua HaMashiach. They each sent up a loud screech as their bodies began to convulse. Seconds later, ashes lay where their bodies had once been. Toda Yah, I cried as I turned to leave out the room. I walked out of my door and walked into the boardroom. The most powerful men in the world sat at the meeting table, my grandfather at the head of it. The chair opposite him was open. Hey, son, we've been waiting for you. He gestured toward the opposite end. Take a seat. We have a proposal for you. I shook my head. No, that's all right. I'll stand. Suit yourself, my grandfather chuckled. The youth, he said to a man sitting at his right. My boy, today is your lucky day. Son, you have been chosen to be king of this world. The master wants to give you, his rulership. Can you believe that, son? Such an opportunity. You have the opportunity to become a god. As you know, sitting at this table is the head of every nation that matters, of course. And they are ready to bow down to you. Today, right now, you become the most powerful man in all the earth. A god, son. What do you say, Junior? Make your grandfather proud. He held open his hands. I say, go, Satan, in the name of Yahushua. For it has been written, you shall worship Yah, your power, and him alone you shall serve. Everybody in the boardroom, including my grandfather, grabbed at their throats before letting out a terrible scream, their heads moving sporadically on their heads. Seconds later, they were piles of ashes. I backed up out of the room, staring at the spot where my grandfather had stood. My grandfather. I loved him. The pain at seeing him die is beyond what I can explain right now. But I did not love him more than I love Yehoshua. Hallelujah, I yelled, walking out the door. Hallelujah, I cried over and over again. When I was done, hunger began to fill my belly. Suddenly, I was extremely hungry, starving even, and I could smell food. I was now walking through a door that led to a dining room. The long table was full of food, but it was all unclean. There was nothing on the table that was not abominable. Sit and eat with me, Junior. A man that was dressed in a black cape with a hood so big it cast a complete shadow across his face, so that his face could not be seen at all. Eat, Junior. The food is good, and your belly is hungry. Eat from my table, Junior. Let me fill you. I was so hungry my stomach hurt. But then I thought about Yehoshua fasting for 40 days in the wilderness, and I shook my head. Man does not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes out the mouth of Yah. And suddenly, I felt full. So full that when I blinked and opened my eyes again, I found myself exiting the dark forest. My father and my brothers next to me. They all stared at me, astonished. What? I asked. Feeling different. Feeling changed. You're glowing, my father said. I held up my hands and looked down at them. And sure enough, my body was surrounded by a warm glow. What happened? I asked. My pops, still looking amazed, shook his head. We fought our way through the forest. They came at us strong and hard. You went somewhere in your head, but your body was still there with us. Every evil thing that came near you just screeched, convulsed, and went up in smoke. You didn't even blink. You just destroyed. I looked at the other ox. Lion had blood dripping from his sword. His pet had blood and chunks of flesh in his teeth and paws. Danny came from the forest, his gun strapped over his shoulder. He too looked at me in wonder. Oh man, Shlomo, I ain't never seen nothing like that. Man, once you started glowing, bodies just started dropping. You okay, Junior? Lion asked. Lion, man, I'm better than okay. I can't even describe how I feel right now. Lion chuckled. Hey, bruh, let's get your wife. Then you can tell us all about what just happened. I nodded. Up ahead of us, very high on the top of the mountain, was what looked like a church. They got her up there, my father said. I looked at my watch. We had 15 minutes to get up that mountain. Come on, y'all. We almost out of time. I took off at a sprint. I heard a loud roar from behind me. When I turned to look back, my brothers were right behind me. A loud roar filled the place. It was so loud and terrifying that all the people in the mass began to rise from their seats and began to slip out the doors. It wasn't an exit that wasn't being idolized. Wait! Wait! Margaret yelled. Where are you going? It's time to summon our master. Another roar shook the walls and the people started running. Cowards! All of you! She was so angry that spittle began to come out the side of her mouth as she spoke. That's okay. I don't need any of you. But I promise you, when the master arrives, we will make you all pay for this. She came towards me, pulling a huge knife from a hidden pocket that was in the front of her dress. That's all right. I don't need them anyway. She brought the knife up and slashed down. I closed my eyes, waiting for the cold steel to pierce my skin. But it was the leather straps that held my arms apart that she cut, before quickly cutting my feet. My strength was not fully back, so I stumbled when she yanked me by my hair off the wooden block. She was surprisingly strong and fast. 1 minute, I was in front of the wooden block. The next, I was standing in front of her, and she was holding the knife at my throat. Not so fast, son, she said, pressing the blade to my throat, drawing blood. Mom, wait. Solomon. Oh, thank you, Yah, that was Solomon. I thought I would never hear his voice again. I squinted, trying to spot him in the dim church. He was there, slowly walking up the stairs to this altar. He held out his hands, trying to calm his mother. But there was no calming her. I could feel the adrenaline racing through her. She shook with it. You just in time, baby. Mama has said something very special for you. Okay, let Stormy go and then show me. She shook her head. No, Mama can't let Stormy go. We're gonna need her, baby. With her death, all of our dreams will come true. You're gonna be the most powerful man to have walked the earth in a long time. And baby, I'm gonna make you a good wife. A way better wife than this hood rat. Mom, please. You don't know what you're saying. You need to get some help. Let me get you some help, please, Ma. I don't need any help, she screamed, causing intense pain in my ear. Don't talk to me like I'm crazy. I am not crazy, but you ungrateful. I've done all this for you. And how do you repay me? How do you show me your gratitude? Ma, I love you. Just please put the knife down. As he talked, he got closer and closer. He was so close now I could see his face clearly. She shook her head, backing all the way up. No, you don't love me. You just like your father. You can't appreciate all the things I've done for you. Junior, I love you, son, Senior yelled, startling Margaret, who had not seen him coming up behind her. What happened next happened so fast, all took place within 6 blinks. Blink. Senior ran and tackled Margaret, grabbing the hand she held the knife in. Blink. The sound of glass was heard, and then all 3 of us was falling. Blink. Solomon shot out the window after us, grabbing me. Blink. Lion's big body appearing out the window behind him, catching the back of Solomon's shirt. Blink. Him then pulling both of us back into the window. Blink. Me turning my head to see Margaret and Solomon Sr. falling down the mountain. Their bodies, they hit the bottom.